Good morning, Vietnam.
Good
How's everybody
morning,
doing?
Vietnam. Yeah. Um, I was thinking, so just roughly the agenda.
Right.
Let's start off with just talking about the podcast. Like,
Yep.
what do we want to do, and what's
Yeah,
in
yeah,
your
yeah.
head for
Absolutely. So, yeah, we're two 30 something guys, and the obvious thing to do is start a podcast. So,
of course, what else does
during,
do people
during
in their
the
middle ages do?
during the during this time of great endemic pandemics and other activities,
Yeah.
we have decided to add our voices to the internet and
Yeah.
become celebrities and
Yeah.
monetize.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Uh,
A bit after the pandemic.
yeah, hopefully monetize and survive as well. So
We're catching on. We're trying to catch the trend of people having less digital stuff to do after the pandemic and more analog. So
yes,
we're trying to short the podcasts.
exactly. Basically, we want you to listen to what we have to say because we think that we're
Important.
we have important things to say. And of course, what else are you going to do? You're stuck in your gyms and in your doing or washing your dishes, so you might as well listen to our podcast.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's the marketing done. What's next on the agenda?
Well, I thought we would like also um, talk through like what do we want to cover on the podcast. I think
I think
it's an interesting
that's a
thing.
good question for sure. So the podcast, I mean, both of us are fairly uh, like technology oriented, but also very interested in other things as well, like social issues, privacy issues, uh, arts, culture, music, lots of things like that, pop culture, um, the future, trying to predict what's coming, what kind of technology is cool, what are the trends that are coming up, what are the possible effects of solar flares on COVID infection rates,
Yeah.
and so on and so forth. So yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff to discuss. A lot of stuff. What about you? What do you think?
I definitely want to do technology, and I was also thinking some things around operations, like technology is a recurring thing because like AIs are going to fundamentally change the
Right.
world,
Right.
and we are seeing the change, and it's such a rapid pace that some of things like technology can be very repeatable because we can there are updates, there are things that need to be touched upon again and again.
Yeah.
I think,
Well, let's double click on that.
yeah.
That's a term I learned recently in very like corporate meetings.
Yeah.
When you double click on something, you open that up for discussion.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
let's
go ahead.
double click. So AIs are going to have a huge revolution, but at the same time, AIs are really dumb right now.
Yeah,
So what
that's
is
the
how do you reconcile those two things? Like if you ask ChatGPT something, it has a reputation now for being very confident and absolutely giving you the completely wrong answer, very confidently.
So I think there's a couple of things to reconcile in that. Chat GPT is first of all the first one to come out.
From OpenAI, yeah.
Yeah, from OpenAI.
Yeah.
Google has had its own solution called Lambda,
Right.
and from the things that I've heard recently, he's here.
Awesome. Thank you.
We're having tea as well.
Jasmine.
Thank you very much. Thank
Cheers.
you. Yeah, so
So that's the tea sorted.
that's the tea sorted. We'll pour ourselves some tea at the same time.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Nice.
We need to have something to say after this, but
Absolutely.
for future reference when we're doing this, like a catchphrase or something. For now, we're just gonna go like a cheers, but with
Yeah.
catchphrase.
It's tea time.
Tea time. There you go.
It's time. Tea time.
Okay.
Hmm.
So I was saying that it's they're coming out with Google is coming out with
Yeah.
Lambda.
Right.
From what I heard, they're going to integrate it into the existing search results interface that they have.
Yeah.
And it's going to be free, unlike ChatGPT is free right now, but after a certain amount of usage it becomes paid. So it's
Sure. Sure.
the interface of what is available.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you look at what Google has currently done with rich snippets with PPA, people also ask. So when you type something in Google, there's rich snippets that pop up with people
Yeah.
on,
Yeah.
and it gives you choice over there.
Mm-hmm.
And what you're saying, ChatGPT doesn't give you choice. So my answer is twofold. One is ChatGPT is the first solution.
Okay.
There might be others that come out
Yeah.
that will offer different answers and will improve over time.
For sure.
And number two is that even when you look at Google or an interface like Google search results, it's never just one answer. And over time, people will figure out.
Ah, yeah. Thank you very
Ooh,
much.
thank you very much.
Perfect.
Thank you. So over time, people will figure out. Oh, thanks. I'll dig in a bit. Time, people will figure out, like the companies will figure out how to serve more than one answer or personalize the answer for better accuracy. Having said that, I still think there's also issues of like bias
Right.
and narrative in there. Like if you go ask about the January 6th events from ChatGPT, it gives a very, very democratic party point of view on it
Right.
rather than a Republican Party one.
Right.
Why don't I do this? Let me help
yeah.
you.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. Yeah, this is okay. Great. Let's keep it that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So it's pretty interesting to see those two aspects
Right.
evolve over time. Like how,
Right.
I mean, it's a genuinely good question that you have there. So what about you? What are your thoughts on that?
To be honest, right now, the AIs look to me like they are barely at the level of like newborn children. But maybe that's exactly the analogy.
Yeah.
Because they are going to be maturing and growing up, in a sense. But
Spring roll.
Spring roll.
This one spring roll.
Thank
fresh
you.
spring roll. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So sure, there is potential. Clearly, some of these language models are already very sophisticated, and they can give you very interesting answers. But having said that, the problem that I see is that you don't have any way of really knowing what you're being told is correct and not a confidently wrong answer. So how do you know? You pointed out the issue of bias and misinformation and possibly one point of view is being given but not other points of view. So yeah, like whatever like knowledge that it's trained on is the knowledge that it will be able to give out. So the problem is you don't know what you don't know. So the problem here is that the bias of being unaware of the other facts that you don't know. So this is, I think, a huge problem for you guys.
I actually had a thought around that in terms of like at some point we're actually going to need companies that do AI bias testing. So take a set of events,
Right.
frame the questions and ask them from an AI and
Right.
measure different AIs against each other in terms of how they answer and which way they're biased. Like, are they biased towards one narrative or another? And I mean, you're gonna have to have some kind of index or scoring around that, in my opinion, at some point.
Right.
And that comes to the fact that there's going to be new sets of jobs and challenges, and therefore new sets of jobs and solutions that come out of just trying to manage the issues around AIs.
Interesting. So a new economy or a new ecosystem of AI-related tasks or jobs or companies,
Mm.
which will arise just from the fact that AIs exist and are being used out in the real world.
Yeah.
And so people will need to come up with start an industry and tools to work with these AIs
Yeah.
somehow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Another concern that I have with AIs, especially large language models, is that, and other kinds of models, is that they use a huge amount of computational power.
Yeah.
Even like things like Midjourney, just to render an image,
Yeah.
can take like minutes or hours depending on the parameters. And the amount of computational power can make the compute power used by other kinds of systems look like child's play compared to how much these AIs are taking. And you have to wonder, like, what are they doing with all this compute power? Like, they're just running statistical models essentially at the end of the day. So,
Yeah.
is it really, like, what's the payoff here? Is it really that much worth it?
And they're not just running statistical model; they're running statistical model in real time.
Right.
Which is one of the reasons that you know that answer really ends up being both an economic answer, like are they going to give it away for free, and if so, then who's subsidizing the cost? Like like we mentioned the Google thing. Like if Google puts it as an interface for its existing search results, is it
Right.
going to be for free?
Right.
And who's going to bear the cost?
Yeah, there's no such thing as free lunch. Like, I'm wondering where's all this power coming from
Yeah.
to power, all these resources, the cost of the electricity, who's paying for this? And is this the best use of our limited resources on this planet?
I do have a couple of other things to add to that. I think that there are some mission critical things which AIs are able to do, which is not the conversational AIs we're talking about, but let's say, tons of new planets have been discovered
Right.
thanks to AI and the work that AIs are able to do in scanning that stuff.
Mhm.
Now, you wouldn't hear about the consumer aspect of this. You just hear at the end of the day, oh, we found 200 new planets, right? But
Or
when
breast cancer detection AIs,
sorry,
cancer detection AIs
or cancer detection AI, right?
are
That-
very hot in the healthcare industry right
yeah.
now.
So there are mission critical applications where definitely, there is no question that hey, the compute power is just it's a nothing compared to the value that you gain out of what an AI. To me, really, it's like when you're searching for like low level things, right? And you ask an AI to do it, and then the compute power that you use up is worth way more
Right.
than the answer that you're getting.
True. True.
Then it's an issue, and then it has to be subsidized somehow. Number one. But I also think there's another part of it that is very interesting, and that comes from your comment that is AIs are in its infancy.
Right. True.
Um,
It's clear to tell that they are at an
oh,
infant.
definitely.
Yeah.
So the way I frame this is that if you take, so I do search optimization. Part of the things that we learn in search optimization is the more specific something is,
Right.
the more accurate it probably is.
Right.
Okay, the more likely to
Sure.
stick with the end consumer it most likely is. So if you are looking for an iPhone 4S and I show you a bunch of different smartphones, it's not specific enough. Whereas if I show you exactly the iPhone 4S, it is way more specific.
Right.
How would I know what you need?
Right.
And that is a matter of me figuring out your context. AIs right now are fundamentally working um, on machine learning. It's basically statistical analysis.
Sure.
But what you can do is develop what are called features,
Okay.
which provide the AI with greater context without needing to compute that again and again. And those features could be very specific to a particular person so that they're personalized,
Okay.
so that the answer that the AI gives is much more specific and therefore much more accurate to what the person needs.
Right. Right. That's an interesting. I wanna double click on that.
Yeah.
So that's a very interesting tangent that you just brought up, which is that having personalized AIs for a single person. Now, imagine in the future that you have a personalized AI that is assigned to only interact with one single person, let's say from birth or from a very young age,
Yeah.
and they act as a kind of a companion to this person.
Yeah.
Imagine that we've solved the issue of compute power and
I
resources.
totally imagine this because I think that this is what we want.
Yeah. So imagine that you have this system which is connected to the person and interacts with the person and grows with the person
Yeah.
over the years, and they learn what the person wants, and the person learns how to use the AI, and they become kind of like a symbiotic system and augment the intelligence of the human.
Yeah.
The retention, recall, memory, decision making capabilities. Um,
Emotional management.
Sure. Emotion management. Have you seen the Disney Pixar animated movie Big Hero 6?
Yeah.
Because,
Nice
so
movie.
yeah. So in Big Hero 6, Baymax was a robot created by the protagonist's older brother uh, to help people who had been injured. And he was a medical intervention robot. And he looked like a blimp, kind of like a Michelin man, but he had an entire medical kit inside him, and he was able to diagnose and fix issues that he saw people were in distress, including emotional distress. So he was able to offer counseling and guidance.
Yeah. I and I think what you're referring to is that there's a bunch of imagination around the stuff that has happened. Big Hero 6 is one of them. I also saw this in Destiny, the game Destiny. You pick up this little floating AI. That's pretty. Yeah,
Oh
we're
yeah,
good.
great.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
So you pick up this floating AI,
Right.
which guides you and interfaces with helps you interface with it and teaches you stuff.
Sure.
I actually believe that this is well the exact nature of how it is, whether we're going to have a Neuralink and get it implanted in our head, or whether it's a phone device, or whether it's a walking robot is a different question.
Right.
But I do think that this is something as humanity we imagine AIs helping us that way. We made a bunch of shows and movies showing how they might be helping us,
Sure.
and also the dangers of them, like
Yeah. for
iRobot.
sure. Like in Halo, Cortana, which is ironic because then Microsoft went and introduced a Windows search system called Cortana. So now, which is very ironic on their part,
They forgot to,
because Cortana was supposed to have complete control over the human,
yeah,
which it interacted with. So
they forgot to add Microsoft will not be evil, like Google did. Don't be evil.
yeah. But well, I mean, Google that said not be evil, but they forgot about that catchphrase a long time ago. So
I know. Yeah, that's kind of like the joke for me, right?
True.
Yeah, they make tons of decisions which are like micro decisions that pretty much go against privacy and this and that.
Sure. Yeah.
No,
I mean, we live in an age of mass surveillance. Every technology that we interact with,
Is
we have
ma-
to ask
yeah,
the question that what is the potential of this to surveil me?
yeah,
Nowadays, I'm even thinking that nowadays what I even do is like when I finish using my one of my prescription medications bottles, I I tear up the sticker on the bottle before I throw it, so that the sticker contains tons and tons of personal information about me, right? So, and in fact, so do every piece of mail that you get in your you know in your mailbox. Like, I'm talking about physical mail. Like, when you throw those mails out of your house, think about what they contain, right? Like, they contain your name, your address, other personal details about you. There's tons and tons of things that they contain. What I do nowadays, I've gotten into the habit of always tearing up those uh, mails, the papers, the envelopes, everything, before I throw them out, because it's a huge amount of information that's just flowing out of your house along with those mails.
Let's play a little game. Let's say that you are an AI designer and a scammer at the same time, and you just got hold of Yawor's little prescription thing that he forgot to tear up.
Mm.
What are the risk factors? Particularly, keep in mind you're a programmer who has access to, and you're good at programming AIs.
Right, right, right. What are the risk factors? I don't know. Are you thinking like a fishing or a vishing expedition?
I'm thinking about the fact that AIs, we're looking at them from this perspective of they're revolutionizing the world.
Right,
There are fears around biases and specificity and
right,
energy usage, but there's also questions around what if the wrong people are using the
What are the
AI?
ethics?
What are the ethics?
Using AIs?
You know that
What if they're being used in the wrong way?
yeah.
There's nothing preventing an AI from being used to commit frauds and crimes, right?
Yeah, and I'll give you two very specific examples that happened relatively recently. One was the uh, tournament that somebody had submitted AI art and they won the tournament
Right.
with the AI art,
Yeah.
and then I think it's DeviantArt or Flickr, I forget which
Yeah.
one, which has now banned the use of AIs.
Right.
And even when you go on Reddit art,
Right.
they specifically say there that, oh, we have mechanisms of detecting AI art, and
Right.
that's not allowed here
Right. Right.
unless you wrote the algorithm yourself. Similarly, there are other areas where the use of AI for another area is students submitting work for their classes which have been written by AI
Mm.
and trying to get good grades.
Oh yeah, I see this all the time. I see students posting on Reddit asking for help with ChatGPT to submit their assignment.
I think it's an interesting topic to touch on. What are the risks of the technology that we're developing? Not the bias, or because those are very, hey, this is still in the hands of good people, so they will try and fix those issues, right? Oh, there's a bias where it's not accurate enough. Our assumption is that people will step in because they want to give great customer experience and fix the original technology makers. But then there's the more meta question of like, well, you fix those, but it still doesn't take away from the fact that people might use these for fraud or for scams or for cheating or for all of these things which would be considered wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. You can. And it's like any technology, human-made technology, can be used for good or bad. Any technology can be weaponized. We all have knives in our kitchen. Knives are deadly sharp objects,
Yeah,
but we need them because they're tools in the kitchen.
yeah.
So, how do you do that with AI? You obviously there should be safeguards, but how do you force people from accepting and allowing those safeguards to run properly without trying to tamper with them?
Let's start a certification where we are humans that detect AIs.
The Turing test.
Yes, we'd
To
give.
me, I think the Turing test actually has a wrong idea. It's
Hmm.
not about trying to detect um, an AI from by chatting with it, but trying to tell whether it's a person or not. The the simplest way to detect the AI is to not say anything at all,
Hmm.
because
They won't respond.
the AI has to be prompted to say something.
Yeah.
A human will talk to you by themselves, but an AI will wait for you to prompt them.
I remember when they introduced they've tried doing IVRs which are more AI based and which will try to understand the conversation and then
Right.
oh, I mean they will misunderstand you so well and then just
Right.
go into a cycle because they don't have the appropriate understanding of what you're trying to say.
No, this reminds me of something that I saw a tweet. Elon Musk posted a screenshot
Yeah.
from the PayPal chat AI,
Yeah.
support AI.
Yeah.
Mm. So the AI starts, posts a message saying, "How can I help you?" The person says, "I just got scammed," and the AI says, "That's great," and then let me help you with that. So
Yeah, it's great that you got scammed, huh?
yeah.
That's hilarious. Yeah. It's like sometimes they have those ads that are misplaced
Mm.
and they'll have an ad for something nothing comes to mind right now,
Sure, sure.
but there's those ads that'll be on one page it'll be something about one thing and right next to it there'll be an article which you're like this ad should not belong next to this article.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Mm. Oh yeah. I've definitely seen those. I've seen those for sure.
Yeah.
Those are kind of like the bane of the digital marketing industry.
Yeah.
Whenever things
Something
like that
like
happen,
yeah.
somebody becomes really very, very nervous and anxious.
Yes. I hope it's not caught. I hope it's not screenshotted. I hope I don't lose my job.
Mm. Actually, this company where we used to work before,
Yeah.
there was a controversy about something similar.
Yeah.
Um, I, I don't know. You might remember this. Somebody used Google Translate
Yeah.
to run some ad copy in English and translate it into French for Quebec.
Yeah.
And so the English version said something like, XYZ is killing it in this business. And the French version came out as XYZ is murdering in the business. So, and then that was a huge controversy. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a funny one.
Mm.
Let's press the back button
Mhm.
and come out of the little technology double click that we did.
Right.
Yeah, so technology is definitely a very interesting. Like we haven't touched. Like this was just a discussion
Sure.
where we maybe touched 1% of what we find interesting.
Sure.
I think some of the urban planning / living in Toronto parts are also
Yeah.
something that is interesting. Both because Toronto is developing
Sure.
in good and bad ways very very quickly.
Sure.
I mean, it is one of the huge metropolitan areas of the world.
Yeah, for sure.
Um,
It's one of the. It is definitely a very important city in,
Yeah.
in the global landscape, and especially in Canada.
Hmm.
I think the biggest city in Canada, right? The biggest and most populated city. So.
in addition, even from a cultural landscape,
Mm.
TIFF happens here.
Yeah.
Hot Docs happens here.
Mm.
You look at like shows, and you'll be watching. Like I was watching Jack Reacher on Amazon Prime,
Right.
and the subway scenes in the first season, going through the first season, and the subway scenes are all in Toronto. I can just look at the subway and I can go like, that's from
Oh
one.
yeah. Tons of shows are filmed here. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a lot of media. There's a
Mhm.
lot of fashion that happens here.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like board games. There's tons of board game designers who live here. Second largest, I think, number of escape game rooms in the world are in Toronto.
Mm.
And I could, like, Anime North happens, Comic Con happens, like all the big events happen here.
Fan Expo.
Fan Expo, yeah. So it's got a very, very active cultural scene. The summer festivals, the concerts that happen here,
Collision Conference.
Collision Conference. So there's, like, we can keep naming it. There's something happening throughout summer and throughout the fall.
Oh yeah, for sure.
In Toronto, it starts in mid-spring and all the way to, and even in winter
For sure.
there's the
Right up until like Halloween.
no, even after that there's the Christmas-related stuff that's
Oh yeah, Christmas market in the distillery.
Christmas market in the distillery. There's the Luminato Arts or
Illuminato, yeah.
something
Nuit Blanche.
Nuit Blanche, yeah. So there's a couple of art festivals that happen, Winter Arts Festival, and then I also think, like, specifically keeping in mind North America and urban planning, like the way Toronto is building its train infrastructure,
Mhm.
the metro infrastructure,
Mhm.
and then when you compare it to like the work done in Japan or somewhere else,
Mhm.
where there's higher population densities,
Mhm.
how good or bad is it? How well has Toronto managed? I think those are very interesting questions for me.
Absolutely, very super interesting. I think that Toronto, in general, has fallen into the North America trap
Hmm.
of becoming car dependent. We are ruled by overlords who want to basically tackle the problem of traffic by building more highways.
Hmm.
And they pay lip service to the idea of transit, but they don't really fund transit in the way that it should be. Public transit. They're building some things, but those projects are years and years late. They're always getting changed at the last minute.
Hmm.
They're always running into budget issues, delays, and many other problems. And the people of Toronto are kind of sick and tired, and we are feeling unsafe with the current situation right now with the public transit. People
So-
are taking cars, taxis.
So I'll say something that I think the current in the past 5 to 10 years,
right.
specifically on the Go side of things,
Uh-huh.
and they have made quite a lot of progress. I mean, you might think that the past 10 years were awful because of all the stoppages that we had.
Right.
They have changed the signaling system.
Right.
That's basically why they were having all of those. Every summer there was, and it took them, like, I would agree, it took them like 4 years to change it, and it's too
Right.
long.
Right.
But now trains can, like, the subway trains can run much closer.
Mm.
They are changing, they're redoing a couple of the lines, a couple of the stations. They have, for the Go, they're redoing as well.
Yeah, there have been improvements for sure. There
There-
was the
there-
Union Pearson Express, which is
The-
a
the
much
U-
welcome improvement.
And they just announced a new
Yeah.
subway line downtown. I don't know if you know this.
Just announced.
Yeah, in the past
Really?
2 months.
Really? What is that? I had not heard of it.
It's gonna run, I believe, from Lakeshore
Uh-huh.
through the Union kind of thing,
Mhm.
and it's gonna go through Union, straight on, and then it's gonna go up and connect, I think, along Victoria Park Avenue to. I'm not sure on this, but we can look at a map and.
Okay.
But it's gonna connect up along Victoria Park Avenue to Bloor.
Okay.
So it's gonna cross the Young line at two places, and it's gonna cross the Bloor line at one location, and it's
Okay.
gonna be running along the lake.
Okay. That's cool.
And then there are two new streetcar lines that are also in that same direction,
Right.
going to be running from Union. So they're trying to develop that east, between Scarborough and the Distillery District.
Right.
That whole area is going to get, like, probably very heavily revamped. They're going because once the subway line is there, there's going to be a push to build condos and apartments where near the subway. That's going to drive a lot of, like, the construction work in those areas.
That's definitely great to hear. But I have to ask a question. Like, if you notice, we still don't have a very basic, I think, safety issue handled in our system, which is we still don't have barriers
Yeah.
between the subway platform and the tracks. So you have people who
Yeah.
could fall onto the tracks.
Yeah.
They could deliberately go into the tracks. You see the TTC sometimes closes some subway line because they have to deal with people on the tracks. Um, and I think it's a huge safety issue. People have been pushed.
It's
People
just
have
not
fallen.
it's not just a safety issue, it's also an operation issue. Every time
Mhm.
that some
Mhm.
little incident happens,
Mhm.
it means like to clear the track,
Uh-huh.
somebody needs to make sure the clear track is cleared. If somebody
Yeah.
has fallen, then you need to go get that
Yeah.
person,
Yeah.
you know.
It's a
With-
major issue for sure.
yeah, and when your trains are running like a minute apart in
Yeah,
rush
yeah.
hour,
Yeah.
that can take like 10-15 minutes.
Yeah.
That means people are not getting delayed by 10-15 minutes, they're getting delayed by half an hour
It's a
to 40
ripple effect.
Yeah, there's a ripple effect.
Goes out and out. Yeah.
um,
It's a huge issue.
it's a huge issue, so they are aware of that.
Mm.
The thing is, I don't know what they're doing about it because obviously I don't sit in the. But on the visual plan, so the 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 company that had bid for the new Ontario, it's called the Ontario line, I think, the new line.
Mhm.
The company that had bid and won is Hitachi, and in the designs of what they have sent,
Mm.
all the stations are actually have those glass doors so
Uh-huh.
that the train has to line up with this, and there's therefore barriers on those.
Mhm.
So as far as I know, the new lines being constructed are going to have that.
Okay, that's good.
So
Okay.
I mean, there's some sense of it.
I mean, we even have this now in Bangladesh,
I know.
which just introduced the new Dhaka metro line,
Yeah.
which is the MRT, Mass Rapid Transit System. You have a barrier between the platform and the train, which it opens up when the train is lined up, and then passengers can go in and out. So if that's happening in the new subways stations, then absolutely that's a huge win. But I think it's taking too long. Like,
No,
this is a symptom.
this is something that I agree with you, but that it takes too long. I think comes down to budgets, right?
Mm.
When we look at Toronto, there's genuinely two populations here.
Mhm.
There's the urban livers who
Yeah.
live in condos, who live close
The
to
people who live in the city.
in the city, and then there's the suburbanites.
Mhm.
And while suburbanites do enjoy the Go network, I think
The people who take economic advantage of the city of Toronto,
at the suburbanites.
the opportunities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And plus, on top of that, most suburbanites actually tend to be with families, with little kids.
Right.
And so their preference almost always ends up being, oh, we'll just drive rather
Yeah.
than they live in a world where freedom is driving.
Mhm.
Whereas
Exactly.
people who live in the city, for them,
Freedom is driving and living in their own house,
yeah,
which is not near any. They don't need to deal with any neighbors.
yeah. But for people who live in the city, freedom is being able to just walk out,
Yeah.
take a 5-minute ride
Yeah.
on a public transport, so that you don't have to worry about a car, etc. You don't have to worry about parking.
Or I can walk to 5-10 minutes from my house and get my groceries.
Yeah, I can
I
walk
don't rely on a car. I'm
I-
free from reliance.
free from reliance on the car and all of what that brings. And so there's two different markets that are being served over here.
Yeah.
And they have competing asks. Like people who live in the suburbs that like nice Go
And
stations.
one market is not paying their fair share.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. People who drive to the Go stations, they are parking their cars at the stations for free. So they're getting free parking. Oh, thank you. So effectively, they're getting a discount
Yeah.
on their total cost of the transit than
Yeah.
the people who don't have cars.
Yeah. And so I think it's an interesting It's an interesting kind of.
I think we haven't even touched on the basic fundamental issue in North America, which is that in North America we have connected people's home ownership to their basic uh, lifetime savings and
Yes.
economic value,
Yeah.
which makes people extremely conservative about anything that could affect their home values,
Hmm.
and thus makes them extremely opposed to developments, densification, urbanification, and other initiatives which would benefit all social classes, immigrants, and many other people, young people
Yeah.
as well. And these people will become extreme opponents of any initiatives which could possibly have an impact on their home values.
Yeah.
They've become like the enemy of progress, essentially.
Yeah. And I can tell you things like this. Like there's a up where I live in the Willowdale area. There was a container. There was a park, which is absolutely disused land.
Right.
And when you actually look at that park, yeah, I'll try some. When you look at that park,
Right.
there's a little whole kind of area where like it's actually I feel at night it's not a
Yeah.
safe area to walk through that.
Right. Right.
So the plan was to there was a plan floated to build temporary container homes,
Okay.
and I've actually seen the temporary container homes because they have been shipped and they're parked in a parking lot waiting to be installed over there.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
And then halfway through, the citizenry over there realized what's happening,
Mm-hmm.
and we went like, "Oh, this might affect our land prices."
Yeah. Yeah.
And they went like, "Oh, we don't want it." Suddenly, they just swiveled around and said, "We don't
We
want it."
can't allow that.
The fact of the matter is, it's far enough away from the area, and already the park is dangerous. Like, it's not gonna make the park less more dangerous. It might make it less dangerous because now there's people living over there. But no, they want
Exactly.
yeah.
They become extremely blind to any um, kind of like uh, initiatives which might help other people, and
Yeah.
extremely opposed to those. So yeah, that's the basic problem. Tying people's net worth, especially the middle classes and upper middle classes, to their home ownership, and like their retirement in savings and income in their old age
Yeah.
will essentially come from their home values.
Yeah.
And this is a huge mistake and trap that we fell into here in North America.
Yeah.
It's something that they managed to avoid in other countries. For example, in Japan, your home values are not your life savings are not tied up in your home. What they do, in fact, in Japan is they forcefully demolish and rebuild houses and buildings every 30 years.
Oh wow.
So there is no scope for people putting their entire life savings into their home values.
That's very interesting.
They encourage people to put their life savings in the stock market and other economic activities where it's not locked up in the home values. The money is actually out in the market, involved in economic activity.
That's very interesting. I never actually thought of that aspect because, like, in the liberal world, it's mostly, the way you make as a middle class person, the way you make money is, oh, I don't want to be paying rent. I buy a home, I pay mortgage. It takes 20 years, but it's accumulating wealth over time.
I build up my value.
I
Yeah.
build up my value. Once I'm old enough, I own my own place to live in. No,
Exactly. That's the attitude.
I think another part of urban living that's different when I talk to my cousin in Europe is the way holidays and free time is structured over there.
Right.
There is a much stronger sense of we should get up and go do work in Europe than in North America,
Right.
where work is thought of like, oh, let's quite quit You know, um, just because when you actually see they have 25 holidays in Europe and you can
Right.
do a sick leave anytime
Right.
without a doctor's note, as long as you're not doing 2 or 3 days in a row,
Right.
there's and the fact of the matter is that when you do a day job and you're treated really well, you take care of the day job, so you will show up when you need to show up and get the
Yeah.
work done.
If they are loyal to you, then you will be loyal to them.
Yeah,
If you've been treated disloyally by companies,
Yeah.
then you will develop a sense of disloyalty as well.
yeah. And there's a bunch of companies even in North America which have been able to lock that in, where they might have 500 employees but they make a lot of money, and those employees don't leave and the company doesn't want to grow because they're making a lot of money and they've got their client base set. Like,
Yeah.
they don't have the thinking of like we need to be the biggest.
Yeah. Yeah.
Their thinking is we've got a really good system, a really good work-life balance. We don't need to go for more profit.
Yeah. Yeah.
We need to maintain the work-life balance. You know,
Exactly. There are many problems with VC culture in North America and the way that they squeeze companies
yeah,
to get the last bit of return
Yeah.
for their investments.
yeah,
Some companies avoid that trap. Many companies don't manage to avoid that trap. There's so much we can talk about with work culture. There's so much. It's a huge, huge topic by itself. But I think we've talked a lot in this episode. So
yeah. I
think
just
we've
wanted
done
to.
pretty good.
Yeah, I will. So let's end the episode. But when this was our test run, also our pilot first episode.
Pilot episode. Yeah.
Yeah.
Take off.
Take off. We did it in a restaurant environment while having food. It's the best kind of podcast. Is exactly like this.
Exactly.
It might be a bit noisy. We're sorry about that.
That's
But-
the subway.
You can hear the subway. You might be.
And also the Thai
TV.
version of The Masked Singer is playing in the
Yeah.
background TV.
And there was a kid sitting over there playing with his stuff. We can
Yes.
hear him as well. But
So none of this is our fault.
no, I actually like
Actually,
that
it is our
atmosphere.
yeah, it's a good atmosphere. I like it. I like
It feels like you're sitting at a table with us.
Yeah.
That I think is the best kind of atmosphere.
This is a very cozy place.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. So let's end the podcast
Let's do it.
and talk to you soon.